Hello and welcome to the Revised Total Coliform Roll Sample Siting Plan tutorial. I'm Brittany Earls, Revised Total Coliform Roll Analyst for the east side of the state.
And I'm John Carnes, RTCR Analyst for the west side of the state. The intent of this video is to teach community water supplies how to properly fill out the Sample Siting Plan, or SSP, to adhere to the Michigan Safe Drinking Water Act requirements.
If you're associated with a non-community water supply, the requirements are similar. However, please check with your local health department. All water supplies must have a complete and current bacteriological sample siting plan on file with Eagle. These plans are subject to Eagle's review and revision.
Do I have to have an SSP, Brittany?
Yes, John. Sample siting plans are important tools for water supplies to identify and document the most representative points in the distribution system. Routinely sampling at these points will alert supplies to potential coliform contamination. If a sample is coliform positive, SSPs aid in quick troubleshooting the cause because sampling locations are pre-selected and you know exactly where to go to collect your repeat and triggered samples within 24 hours.
Thank you for stressing the importance of SSPs, Brittany. So where do you find a blank form to fill out?
You can go to the michigan.gov/community-water webpage. Near the bottom of that page, you will find the Revised Total Coliform Roll link. This page has a lot of information and guidance about the Revised Total Coliform Roll. For now, let's focus on the sample siting plan. Here we have a Word document form link and a PDF document form link.
Now that we have found the form, let's go through each section. For training purposes, we will be using the fictitious water supply, Candyland, as an example of how to properly fill out this form. The first section is for the water supply information. This includes the water supply name and water supply serial number, or WSSN, the physical address and county, and population served.
The next section is for water supply contacts. Here you want to list the key personnel that have knowledge of your water system, such as the drinking water operator, director, superintendent, owner, sampler, etc. And it's helpful if you list both the email and phone number.
Next is the section for Eagle and other contacts. Eagle contacts will include the Revised Total Coliform Rule Analyst, the District Analyst, and the District Engineer. In case of emergency, the Pollution Emergency Alerting System, or PEAS, number is listed. You can also use this number to report an E. coli positive sample result if district personnel cannot be reached.
That's right, John. E. coli positive sample results must be reported to the department by the end of the day. Contacting the PEAS hotline fulfills this requirement if you find out after hours.
Thanks, Brittany. Also in this section, there are spaces for other local officials that you deem necessary for your supply. And finally, your local health department. The phone number needs to be listed. If you don't have an email contact, you may list their website or leave it blank.
The next section is for public notification information. List how and what media you'll use to communicate to your customers in case of a boil water advisory or other emergencies that might arise. For smaller supplies, it might be door-to-door, and for larger systems, it might be a combination of TV, radio, and newspaper. Finally, the last section on this page is for the date when the water supply updated the cover sheet.
On to page 2. This page includes the sample requirements and locations. There is an easily missed blank at the top of the page. This is where the minimum required number of total coliform samples per month is recorded. Please fill that in.
But John, how do I know what my minimum required number of total coliform samples is?
The required number of samples per month is determined by the population served by the water supply. Remember that population served blank that was filled in at the top of page 1? In general, more people means more samples. You may always collect more samples than are required. If you have questions regarding the minimum required coliform sample number, you may contact your district office or RTCR analyst. Supplies may include a system map with sample locations. Please be sure to mark whether you've enclosed a map or not.
Eagle highly recommends including site maps because it's easier to see where the routine and repeat samples are collected in relation to the rest of the system. It also helps supplies assess if they're sampling representatively, as is required by RTCR. Examples of maps could range from engineering drawings to online map screenshots to handwritten drawings.
Again, we recommend including a map, but it is not required. Your choice.
The next section is the distribution system sample sites table. This table is where you'll list the routine sample locations as well as the upstream and downstream locations and the associated wells that serve those areas. If you have more than 5 routine locations, we do have a larger map available on our website.
Don't worry, it looks complicated, but we're going to break this down right now. We're going to focus on distribution site number 1, highlighted in blue. Let's look at the routine site address column. The routine address is 56 Park Place. Feel free to add a common name. In this case, it's the library. This should always match the sample location on the lab reports. If you don't want to write the whole address on the sample label, the shorthand name needs to be listed here too.
The next column lists how many samples are collected from each of the routine locations. In this example, the routine site is being sampled once per month. The numbers in the samples per month column should add up to at least the minimum required number of samples per month. This supply collects 2 samples per month, meaning they're collecting 1 from each of their routine locations.
Next comes the upstream and the downstream sample locations. These need to be within 5 service connections of the routine site. In case of a routine positive sample, the upstream, downstream, and routine sites need to be sampled within 24 hours. These are called the repeat samples.
The last column identifies the sources of water that supply the routine and repeat locations. The site code or codes are listed in this space. Site codes are on your monitoring schedule, which is sent out early in the calendar year. In this example, 2 groundwater wells supply the library at 56 Park Place, as well as the upstream and downstream sites. The next table will get more into detail about the source wells.
But Brittany, what if I don't own any wells?
Well, John, if your supply purchases groundwater from another supply, that supply's well site code should go here. However, if you don't know your water supplier's well codes, don't worry, we'll talk more about that later. If your supply purchases surface water or is a surface water system, put NA in this column or surface water because groundwater sampling does not apply.
On to the source sample sites table. Remember those source sample sites we just talked about? This table goes into more detail. The site codes we used above are listed in the first column. In this example, WL001 is the designation of well 1. WL002 is the designation of well 2. Following a routine positive result, these wells need to be sampled within 24 hours. We refer to these as triggered well samples. Please reference your supply's monitoring schedule for the correct site code for each well.
Some supplies have wells in multiple areas. This is where the location and address column comes in. You may list the physical address, general location, for example, behind the community building, or the geographic coordinates if known. John, what's the comment section for?
Good question. This is where any relevant supply-specific information should go. Some examples could be if you purchase groundwater from another supply, the wholesaler supply information goes there. If you are a surface water supply, this is a good spot to indicate that. Any details of multiple distribution systems within the same water supply, which well or wells are used as standby or emergency, and finally, details about the sample collection schedule or alternate sampling sites.
On to the certified lab section. Please list the name and address and contact information of the lab you normally use. In this example, we use the Eagle Lab.
Does the state lab have to be used?
No, John. Actually, you can use any drinking water lab that is certified in the state of Michigan to perform bacteriological sample analysis, specifically total coliform and E. coli. For a list of the certified labs, go back to the Community Water webpage and click Certified Labs under the Programs and Activities section.
It is strongly recommended that you have an alternate lab listed as well. Try to identify a lab that is within driving distance and open on Saturdays. Remember, repeat and triggered well samples must be collected within 24 hours of a positive routine sample result. If you get notified of a routine positive result on a Friday, samples need to be collected and analyzed by Saturday to remain in compliance.
Once the form is filled out, please sign and date the bottom of page 2. Then the completed form should be sent to the district office. We'll tell you how in a few slides.
All right, the last 3 pages give instruction and guidance. Our example was for groundwater supply with their own wells. Page 3 gives example guidance on filling out the distribution system sample sites table on page 2 for other supplies such as surface water and supplies that purchase water.
Page 4 gives examples and guidance for filling out the source sample sites table.
And finally, the last page. This page is full of guidance on developing an SSP, monthly monitoring, sampling instructions, and what to do when a sample result is positive. Where should you send your completed SSP?
To the district office email addresses. Please note these email addresses have been updated recently due to the name change from DEQ to EAGLE. Please make sure you're using the email addresses that reflect the name change to EAGLE. These emails are good for anything you need to send to the department, such as sample results, monthly operations reports, cross-connection reports, general questions, and yes, your SSP. We hope this was helpful in developing the bacteriological sample siting plan. If you have any questions, please email or call. Thanks for watching.